Happy Sunday, everyone. Today, I wanted to talk to you specifically about the service that I provide to my clients. It seems that many clients who work with me are rather surprised about what psychiatric treatment representation is, who it's geared towards, and then this myth that attorneys only go to court, especially when it's related to the service. So I wanted to spend just a couple minutes today just kind of dispelling some of the myths and really breaking down what actually is psychiatric treatment representation, and then the process, and finally, what do I hear clients really rave about the most as far as the representation. So before we get to that, I want to introduce myself for those of you who do know me or don't know me. My name is Marriott Clardy Davis. I'm located in Lilburn, Georgia, which is a suburb right outside of Atlanta. And I'm owner and founder of ML Clardy Law LLC. Now, ML Clardy Law LLC is a mental health care-based service legal firm. And what is special about this firm is that we provide generally one service, one foundational service related to mental health, which is psychiatric treatment representation. So let's just get started. It's a great Sunday morning. It finally has stopped raining, so I'm really excited. So what is psychiatric treatment representation? So psychiatric treatment representation is a legal service that is provided for caregivers and individuals. So specifically, caregivers who have loved ones currently in a treatment facility, a mental health treatment facility. And also individuals can be clients as well, just depending on where they are in their phase of the journey. So who is it for? Families and loved ones who have individuals in a treatment facility, individuals who may have upcoming hearings. So for instance, if you are currently in a treatment facility and you get a notice that, for instance, they want you to stay longer for whatever reason, and you would like to know your legal rights or you want someone to represent you, this service also encompasses that. But more importantly, I very rarely have hearings. Most of my services really start either before the hearing or after the hearing. So I do want to delve a little bit into that because it's really important. So when an individual has been put in a treatment facility or their loved one is thinking of going to a treatment facility to have them evaluated, there are certain legal rights that individuals have. So the legal rights include, depending on how they are admitted, what their legal rights are as far as the length of stay, what options they have legally, whether it's going from involuntary to voluntary, habeas corpus hearings, looking at proposed care, and just general communication. And then finally, when they're in the facility, what is the journey that the caregivers and the individuals go through to get them from what I call frustration to peace of mind? So a big myth, and one thing that I often hear from clients is, I didn't know you did all of that. And so one of the challenges is that most clients, when they call an attorney, they really don't know what they want. And so when they call my office, they know that they are frustrated, they're confused, they may be upset, they may be in panic mode, but they don't know what that means. And so when I'm going through the process to really discover what their challenges are, most of the clients that I work with have those problems, and they have those problems related to their loved one that is currently in a treatment facility. So the service is a combination really of the legal service and the what I call advocacy service. So that is something that really makes my firm different. Understanding that the legal service is just one component of overall care, and more importantly, their journey towards stability, knowing that from my own personal experience with bipolar depression, my firm really had to look at what does a caregiver and an individual go through on their journey while they're in a treatment facility, whether it's right before it, during, or even after it. All three of those stages are so important. And so The service really starts at what I call start at the beginning. So we have a three-prong approach to our service. It's facilitation, negotiation, and advocacy. The biggest part really is facilitation. So when a client calls me, or a potential client calls and says, I'm panicked, I need help, I have my loved one in a facility, I don't know what's going on, I'm really confused. Part of my goal is to really help them understand the very next step, whether that's working with me or me referring them to additional resources. So it's really breaking down, where is your loved one at their stage of the journey? Are they recently admitted? Have they been in a facility for some time? Are there any specific challenges, meaning that the loved one is not getting the medication that they would like? They are in an atmosphere, I call it an atmosphere of chaos, any number of things. So once we determine what the challenges are, then we look at the potential solutions. One of the things that I have a love-hate relationship with this service is because I'm a very task-oriented person. I like to say A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E. And one of the things in my own growth as an attorney in this field that I've had to learn is that it really doesn't operate like that. There are specific steps that I take everyone through in the journey, but based on the individual, based on the facility, based on the options, there really is no straight path. But what there are unique solutions that we must consider. So we can do A, B, or C. And really my goal is to help both the individual in the facility and to help the caregiver understand what those options are, and then the potential consequences of those actions, and finally, how those actions align with the goals. So I want to kind of take you through today from like beginning to end when a client calls. So generally a client will call, and as I stated before, we talk about what their challenges are, what their goals are, what are their frustrations, etc. And then I really evaluate whether it is a good fit for my firm, depending on where they are and what goals they want to accomplish. And then if I accept them and they sign an engagement agreement to work with me, one of the things that I do is I collect information. I send the caregiver a welcome email, which really outlines the responsibilities of the caregiver, open lines of communication, what I need from the caregiver, and other things, just welcoming them to the process and helping them understand the overall flow and experience. And then once I gather the information, within 24 to 48 hours, I will go to the facility. And the first thing I like to do is really meet with the loved one. So establish a rapport. And the biggest thing that I normally do is listen. I ask them how they're doing, I listen to them, and I find out from them what their frustrations are and what their goals are. Now, this is really important because often what I learn is that caregivers, individuals, and the facility have three different goals. So one of the big reasons why I am generally brought in is because when you have three different groups of people with three different goals, three different concerns, and potentially three different outcomes based on those decisions that they're pushing, it can sometimes get very frustrating. It is frustrating for the caregiver. It is definitely frustrating for the individual, especially because they are physically detained. And then also frustrating for the facility because many times the facility's goal is what they call to do what's in the best interest of the patient. So everyone wants to do what's in the best interest of the patient, but often those goals may be different. So once I go and I really understand the goals and challenges of the individual, then I find out who their treatment team is, whether it's their psychiatrist, whether it's their therapist, whether it is anyone, charge nurse, anyone really who is involved in the care of that individual. And then I find out a little bit about their proposed treatment plan, any challenges that they have had with the individual. And then finally, what is their plan for discharge, whether it's discharge, transfer, additional medical treatment, etc. Just really understanding that. So now I have I call it three different perspectives. And then based on those three different perspectives, my job is really to start facilitating communication. There is 100% of the time a silver lining in which all three parties agree, and I start there and then expand outward. So one of the questions generally is, who am I representing? Am I representing the caregiver? Am I representing the individual? Or am I representing the facility? And the answer is, legally, I am representing the individual in the facility. But practically speaking, in order for this to be effective, you have to be able to establish common ground and communicate with all three parties. I'm going to say that again, because that is the biggest myth. If you have an attorney who wants to go to war with everyone else, it will not only be a very long process, but it will become very lengthy and frustrating. So one of the things that I try and do is really understand all three sides, establish common ground, and then really advocate for the best interest of the client. During this process, which we're going back to the overall arching process of psychiatric treatment representation, one of the things that I do is, after I meet with each party, I provide very transparent communication, especially to the caregiver. So what that involves is regular periodic updates. Also, one of the unique things that I like to do is, based on some of the goals, if it is additional treatment, if it is establishing a team outside of the facility, I start working with the caregiver and the individual on what those options are. So a great example is that I have a family right now who the individual is planning on moving out of state after their treatment is over, but they have no team in place. So one of the things that I do as part of the legal service is really looking at what those options are, because my goal is not only to help the individual while they're in the facility, but to really set them up for success. So along the journey of working with clients, part of my goal is to provide them with tools and resources that they can use not only on discharge, but also so that they can communicate to the facility that they have a treatment team and additional things in place. Because one of the things that I've learned about treatment facilities is that for them, the best interest of the client often includes, what is the discharge plan? What do the family members and loved ones have in place, or what are they going to put in place to help this individual on their journey to stability? Facilities do not like hearing, when they leave, nothing's going to happen. So understanding that, I try and put those tools and resources in place before they get discharged. And then as we go through the journey, often things move and shift. And so the ability for my service to also pivot is necessary. And what I mean by that is individual needs may change as they are going through this process. Facilities may come to me and say, we're having an issue with the client because of XYZ, and being able to take all of that information, communicate to all parties, and again, readjust the goals. And then finally, another part of the service that I offer after connecting with the individual is to find out what it will take for them practically to continue their journey through discharge on to stability. And what does that look like? So a good example of that is I have a client that I'm working with who I really identified through a lengthy, me just really listening discussion, that the individual needed, she felt a lack of peace. And what I mean by that is she is someone who enjoys meditating, has a regular meditation practice, and based on being in the facility, it was just really difficult for her to do that. So we looked at what options she can do while she was in the facility to help further that process. So I think I just want to make sure I cover everything. The end result. So what is the end result of the service? The end result is different for everyone, but the end result for the families is really peace of mind. And I'm going to tell you one big reason. Many family members really struggle when they meet me because they are in a state of panic. And to have someone that is a support system to them, and more importantly, someone who really understands because they were in a similar situation, is a big load lifted for many family members. And so the biggest result that many family members experience is peace of mind. And what I mean by peace of mind, I want to be very clear. Me coming in and helping, or the firm coming in and helping a individual, does not mean that I'm going to cure their diagnosis, that suddenly when they come out, everything's going to go away. That's not the peace of mind I'm talking about. The peace of mind that I'm talking about is the peace of mind that you get when you have someone who can support you after going through such a lengthy journey in silence, where so many family members are doing it on their own, they're carrying the burden on their own, and they finally have someone to step in, someone that they can communicate to, someone who establishes clear lines of communication between all parties, and someone who really, really understands the best interest of their loved one. All of that gives many caregivers the peace of mind that they need to do simple things, like to be able to go to work and trust that they have a support system in place that can help protect and advocate for their loved one. So with that being said, I wanted to just invite any caregivers or individuals who are currently experiencing some of these challenges, whether you are currently in a treatment facility, meaning the caregivers have a loved one in a treatment facility, or an individual is experiencing a situation where there's a high likelihood that they will be in a treatment facility, I really invite you to call my office, book a discovery call, state of Georgia only, please. But on that, I will be, and I'm really excited about this, in the future, looking at opportunities to do more of the navigational work in a non-legal capacity so I can impact more caregivers, family members, and loved ones that are outside of Georgia. But for now, state of Georgia only. And I invite you to book a discovery call. It's complimentary. And I would love to get on the phone and learn more about what your challenges are. Thank you. And I hope you have a great afternoon.